Indeed, but no. Right, this next section is topics for pondering, and they're all connected in many ways. And here is more examples of people blindly following the techno route. Because researchers from the University of Georgia have conducted a study which confirms what many already suspected. Humans now tend to trust algorithms more than each other, especially when it comes to tedious tasks. Now, the premise of the study was simple. Some 1,500 participants were shown photos and asked to count the number of people in them. And the participants were able to take suggestions from a computer algorithm or the averages of guesses from their fellow humans in order to complete the task, which involved images of 15 to 5,000 people. Now, as the crowd size or complexity of the task increased, the participants understandably relied more and more on the algorithm to count the people. After all, computers are especially good at tedious tasks that humans shy away from, such as counting. Yes, just ask John Hopkins' disciples for that. And it seems like there's a bias towards leaning more heavily on algorithms as a task gets harder, and that effect is stronger than the bias towards relying on advice from other people, according to Management Information Systems student Eric Bogert from the University of Georgia. Now, the researchers concede that in this particular task at least, there is no ambiguity in terms of the answer, only right or wrong, so the lack of nuance or perspective makes the task ideal for an algorithm as opposed to a human. And this is a task that people perceive that a computer will be good at, even though it might be more subject to bias than counting objects, according to Aaron Schechter, who is an information systems researcher, also at University of Georgia. However, the researchers emphasize that our perception of how accurate an algorithm can be plays an important factor, and outsourcing the task to a machine unwittingly affords the opportunity for bias and discrimination to creep in unbeknownst to the human participants. Yet again, the human trait of taking the easy path instead of learning stuff themselves rears its ugly head. And this fact has contributed to the downfall of man on many levels. The reality is, the hard path is the easier one. Think different. Here's the next example. With smartphones seemingly ubiquitous in the industrialized world, sleep researchers have confirmed what many already suspected, that technology is disrupting human sleep in ways we still don't fully understand. But they do. And humans, along with plants, fungi, and animals, possess what is known as a circadian rhythm, the internal clock that regulates our sleep-wake cycle. And as far as scientists can tell, the majority of this rhythm is maintained by the hypothalamus, which releases the sleep hormone melatonin and is highly responsive to changes in ambient light, especially around dawn and dusk. However, artificial light can impact the dynamics of the hypothalamus, and increased exposure to blue light from electronic devices like smartphones, laptops, and certain kinds of e-readers is having a gradual impact on modern humans' near 24-hour intrinsic sleep rhythm. And light is mainly doing two things to the clock. It is setting the time of the clock, and it is changing the amplitude or strength of the clock, according to Professor Jamie Zeitzer from Stanford University. And a growing body of research indicates that artificial light can suppress melatonin production in humans, thereby disrupting the natural inclination to sleep at the end of the day, often lengthening the time it takes to drift off to sleep. Now, there is evidence that more than 1.5 hours or more of bright screen use reduces the natural nighttime increase in melatonin, and this effect may compound over multiple nights, according to Dr. Sally Richardson from the Western Australia University. Now, previous studies have found that pre-sleep activity can impact the length of time required to fall asleep, and one 2014 study compared e-book versus printed book readers and found that the latter group fell asleep up to 10 minutes earlier. Another example of slowly introducing the techno-bot world. Bots don't need to sleep, remember. Now, this was shared by someone that was able to connect on a frequency level, an energetic level, with a person who just had the techno jab. And the question is, what happens energetically after the COVID vaccine? And this came from France and the experiences of a French energetic healer. And what happens in the energy bodies, and especially in your soul after the vaccine. Now, experience of a therapist who's been working for many years with energy, with healing energy, and with subtle bodies, but above all with the light radiation and the frequency of the vibration of the heart, which is the seat of our soul, in order to achieve a deep contact with the higher self. Now, the healer held a session with a person who had received the first and second doses of the vaccine, and they had already treated this person energetically, but I did not know that she had taken the vax. And when I started the treatment, he said, I immediately noticed a change, very heavy energy coming from their subtle bodies. And the scariest thing was when I worked on the heart chakra. I connected with her soul, so she was detached from the physical body. She had no contact, and it was as if she was floating in a state of total confusion. A damage of the consciousness that loses contact with the physical part. So with our biological machine, there is no more communication between them. Now, during the treatment, this soul told me that it no longer felt the body and had the impression of floating in a deep malaise. And the energy he was working with, the energy of their energy field, was very heavy, and you could feel these substances that are very stressful for the subtle bodies. He continued the treatment by sending light to the heart chakra, the soul of the person, but it seemed that the soul could not receive any more light, frequency, or energy. And he said it was a very powerful experience for him. Now, what has taken part here is this is an example of draining your life force or energy or battery. And what this has done is a disconnect of the spirit. And if you fully disconnect the spirit, eventually you will die. That's how people die in their sleep. The spirit doesn't return to the physical body, and it doesn't. Without the spirit returning, the body can't refire back up again and subsequently dies. Now, what this entails is this then leads to the techno world and the bodies of transhumanism, where you no longer have any soul or spirit connection, only a technological connection. And essentially, you become a USB stick connected to the main frame. The healer says, then I understand that this substance is in fact used to detach the consciousness, so that this consciousness can no longer interact through this body that it has in life, where there is no more contact, no more frequency, no more light, no more energetic balance or spirit. And he said, I started to cry for that soul because it was something that touched me deeply, a very powerful experience. I didn't say anything to the person because I didn't know how to say it and if they would have understood it. I realized that it was not only polluting the subtle bodies or the physical body, but it's something to do with our soul. The purpose is to damage and try to destroy contact with consciousness. And this is what Steiner said, exactly that it's not just about damaging the immune system. And then they did an update second treatment of the person. And he said there has been another change and again a deterioration, both in the severity and in the energy that their energy field transmits. But most importantly, there has been a very significant decrease in frequency. Now, what this is about is this is to counteract the increase in people's PSI fields and light bodies, which has been ongoing. And essentially this planet is undergoing a growth spurt by interacting more with the GNA, the G cloud, and the return of the G matter, which is prevalent for organic life only. Biological, not technological. And many of the grey species are not biological. The P45 and the P52 groups warned us of this, and it is our future path unless we stop it. Now the healer went on and said at the moment he is not showing any physical symptoms on the physical body. As for the situation manifesting on the energetic level and especially the soul, it has been confirmed that the soul has been expelled from the physical body. It is still bound by the so-called cord, that's the silver cord, but it confirms that it no longer interacts with the physical, emotional and mental body, and there is no longer any kind of communication. The soul is no longer able to manage these three bodies to continue its process of incarnation and evolution, precisely because this contact has been broken, he said. So, he also said, I knew the intention of these vaccines was to block the ascension, but I wasn't sure how. Now I know, and I'm blown away. There's part of me that wants to believe it's because these souls were not due to ascend in their current life. But really, I feel deeply it is a lot more sinister. And he said, I'm also aware that they want to trap souls in the 3D reality, which is hell, if only people would understand we are all powerful, free, sovereign beings. And he said, please stop complying and consenting to this virus agenda. It's pure evil. Just like the satanic ritual for C-19, watch the 2012 opening for the Olympics. I pray for these souls that they can return home, but now we have zombies literally walking the earth. And yes, the author of that is right. Now, some will call it ascension, but it is, at its core base, a growth spurt and operating at a higher frequency. And I guess the author thought we would all be going to the higher frequencies. But the reality is, it's just a few. Too many souls in here have been chomped on too much to make it. Throw in drugs, alcohol and pharma poisons abuse, and the picture is not the desired outcome for those people. But from the overview, this is a massive victory. The fact that some will go on and not be trapped in loops with everybody else, when we were designed to be exterminated completely, should not be lost on the listener. They made their own choice.